Hi everyone and welcome, this is the Apostate Prophet. Today I want to talk about the most essential ethical principles of Abrahamic religion, the most fundamental set of biblical rules, which Islam has no clue about. Yeah, I just don't know how I can say this without belittling Islam. I'm not even trying, all I have to do is explain Islam. Islam is little. Does that make sense? Because belittle, little... Whatever. When speaking of Abrahamic religion, people majorly speak of three religions: Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. The Ten Commandments are fundamental rules essential to the history and ethics of both Christianity and Judaism. Everybody knows about them. They form the basis of Jewish law. They come before everything else in Judaism. In Christianity, the Ten Commandments are considered the essential law given to people. Christians have only differed on how to use them and how to cite them. You would expect that Islam, which is also claimed to be an Abrahamic religion from the same God, the same books, and the same prophets, would also give great importance to these fundamental rules. And sometimes you would even think that it does, because Muslims do speak of the Ten Commandments when they recall the story of Moses. The problem is that Islam doesn't give us any information about the Ten Commandments. It seems that Islam is rather ignorant about this topic. I would love to ask Muslims the question, what are the Ten Commandments? Can you count them? Oh, you shall have no other gods before me, you shall not murder, you shall not steal? Interesting. In which Islamic text did you find that? It was not in an Islamic text? You found it in the Bible? That's strange. What are you supposed to say about the Bible? That you neither believe nor disbelieve in it, because the Bible is supposedly unreliable and corrupt according to Islam, right? Because the Jews and Christians supposedly corrupted their scripture at some point in history. It's just very hard to tell when and how and why. So all the information on the Ten Commandments comes from the Bible, and as a Muslim, you are not supposed to read the Bible. Islam can give you no information on what the Ten Commandments are. In fact, it can't even mention that there are 10 commandments. All that it can say is that Moses was given something by God. Allah. So think about this. Moses and the Ten Commandments are an essential part of Abrahamic monotheistic religion, a fundamental part of the history of religion, of morality, of the law. But it is absent in Islam, and Muslims have to look at the corrupt Bible to find out about their existence. According to the biblical tradition, the Ten Commandments were given to Moses on the Mount of Sinai after the Israelites escaped from Egypt, where they were enslaved. God communicated with Moses directly, made Moses lead his people out of Egypt, cut off the enemies that followed them, and on Mount Sinai, God gave Moses the Ten Commandments, followed by God's covenant agreement with the Israelites. This journey is described in so much detail in the Bible. Mine is just a very poor oversimplification. Oversimplification. But you know what? It is, of course, much poorer in the Quran, where nothing is really being said, except that Allah communicated with Moses on the mountain and gave him the scripture and all things. And we wrote for him on the tablets something of all things, instruction and explanation for all things, saying, take them with determination, and order your people to take the best of it. I will show you the home of the defiantly disobedient. This is again typical Quran. What the hell is all things? And God told him all things. That's what my 3-year-old son says. Mommy, let's buy all things. You know, that's how the mind of a 3-year-old works. He just thinks, why don't we just buy all things? Allah has the mind of a 3-year-old. I should just worship my son instead of worshipping Allah. I'm pretty sure he's not half as crazy as Allah and won't want the world to bow down to him or to be enslaved and killed. I hope. We wrote on the tablet the lesson to be drawn from all things and the explanation of all things. There were 2 tablets, and what was on the tablets, according to the actual story, were the 10 Commandments, not the explanation of all things on many tablets. The author of the Quran seems to be ignorant of the actual content of the story, which is no big surprise. That's very common in the Quran. Few verses later, it again refers to the tablets and says that thereon was guidance for those who fear their Lord, but it does again not say what the content was. It's very simple. 2 tablets, the 10 Commandments, not some big instructions and explanations to everything. Everything. all things. Since the Ten Commandments are completely missing in Islam, which is kind of weird, many Muslim apologists or scholars try to claim that certain parts in the Quran are a direct reference or reiteration or revision of the Ten Commandments. But the Quran neither calls them the Ten Commandments, nor does the Quran's content agree with the Ten Commandments. Jews and Christians among each other, list and number the Ten Commandments differently, which are found in Exodus and Deuteronomy in the Bible. But the commandments, with differences in numbering, are the following. I am the Lord your God. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself any graven image or idol. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Honor your father and your mother. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife. Nowhere in the Quran are these commandments repeated. Some Muslims claim that chapter 6, verse 151 to 154 is the Quran's listing of the Ten Commandments, but that part does not have 10 commandments, and the orders there are largely unrelated and different. Other Muslims claim that the 10 Commandments are found randomly spread across the Quran, which means the 10 Commandments are actually in the Quran. But that is just a very bad excuse, and some commandments are in fact not in the Quran at all. Let's go through them. I am the Lord, your God. This one is already very funny. The actual text says, I am Yahweh, your God. But Yahweh doesn't even exist in Islam. Muslims have no idea who Yahweh is. Their God's name is Allah. I made an extensive video on this. It is very good. Please watch it after you watch this. I'm not praising my own videos. I'm just saying it's among the very good videos. It's one of my best videos. Whatever, it's good. You shall have no other gods before me, and you shall not make idols. These are in the Quran. The Quran is very aggressive about this issue. You shall not take the name of Yahweh, your God, in vain. Islam doesn't have such a concept of not taking God's name in vain, because God's name, Yahweh, doesn't even exist in Islam, as said, which completely destroys Islam. But I have already presented that, and I will do so again and again. The Quran never puts an emphasis on not taking Allah's name in vain, which is why Muslims don't really have such a concept. They're not very careful about the name of Allah. They just randomly use it when they are angry, when they're surprised, happy, whatever. Remember the Sabbath day. This one is very strange, because while the Quran mentions the Sabbath, it says that the Sabbath was only appointed for those who differed over it, meaning the Jews and the Christians. Why? No clue. Probably because they were bad. It's always their fault, especially the Jews. Muslims have a Friday instead, where they go to the mosque, and then afterwards they go on with their day. The Sabbath is about resting on the seventh day, like God rested on the seventh day after creating the earth in 6 days. Muslims reject this idea of the Sabbath because they find it blasphemous that Allah would rest on the seventh day, because God doesn't need to rest. Yet they kept the teaching that God made everything in 6 days. If resting is considered blasphemy because God doesn't need to rest, then shouldn't the creation in 6 days also be considered blasphemy because God doesn't need 6 days to create? He can just do everything immediately as he wishes. How does that make sense? But what am I talking about? I wish this was the only thing in Islam that doesn't make any sense. Instead, Allah ascended on his throne on the 7th day. Why does Allah ascend on a throne, people? Why does Allah have a throne? Isn't that quite a material thing? Isn't that blasphemous? Does Allah sit? Where is Allah's throne, by the way? Oh yeah, it is above. Above. You're also to respect your parents in Islam. That's big. Killing is not banned in the 10 Commandments, and neither is it banned in the Quran. It is murder that is banned, and killing people for leaving Islam, including cutting off their hands and feet from opposite sides or crucifying them, is unfortunately not considered murder. That is just killing, ordered by the dear Prophet Muhammad and his beloved God Allah. Adultery is also banned in Islam and punished with death. Stealing is banned in Islam and punished with having your hands nicely cut off. Coveting your neighbor is also forbidden in Islam, and lying is also forbidden. Well, kind of. Unless you do it discreetly and implicitly in order to advance Islam. Too complicated of a topic, I will come to that. So these parts kind of check out, and these rules also exist in Islam. But as said, the Ten Commandments themselves are missing in Islam. Not only in the Quran, but in Islam altogether. Islam instead focuses on pre-Islamic pagan rituals, and on threatening with hellfire, and fighting and hating the disbeliever, and promising the juicy heaven over and over again, and just obeying, and not opening your mouth and your mind. Muslims are left following some completely unnecessary practices on how to eat and how to dress, how to talk, how to have your beard, how to poop, and not to run from the battlefield, even if it makes you poop your pants. Yeah, instead of the Ten Commandments, Islam actually does present some deadly sins, according to which you are not to run from the battlefield. What a religion. This whole topic is one of many aspects which make me think that Islam is a very un-Abrahamic religion, that is built on pre-Islamic polytheistic origins, while unsuccessfully hijacking Abrahamic religion. I will get back to demonstrating that further. For now, thanks for watching. If you like this video, don't forget to like, to subscribe, and to share. Most of my videos are not monetized. If you want to help me make more videos and more projects, then please consider supporting me on Patreon. I appreciate all your support very much, and thanks to all those who support me on Patreon and otherwise. I will be back soon. Have a great day and stay away from Islam.